So the next video on here is called Solving Yu-Gi-Oh's New Player Problem.
This is my video about solving Yu-Gi-Oh's new player problem. So Yu-Gi-Oh definitely
This guy speaks really fast. I'm going to slow him down a bit.
has a new player problem, and if you're not aware of the problem, I would highly recommend watching Raren's video where he goes through and tries to learn Yu-Gi himself as a Hearthstone player. If you don't want to watch the whole video though, you can watch MBT's review video of Raren's video, which does a pretty good job illustrating the points he makes about the new player problems in Yu-Gi-Oh! The brief summary of the video is that
Wait, he's actually speaking at a normal speaking level. Let me go back to normal.
Yu-Gi-Oh is extremely hard to learn as a new player unless you are already been introduced to the game by somebody else who is already familiar with the game of Yu-Gi-Oh.
Nearby, no, he still talks really fast.
This, however, especially nowadays, is not good enough for you to learn a game from somebody who already knows it, because that already works for every other game that you could already have somebody else teach you. There are lots of other ways you can teach a player the game without having someone else to explain.
If one of my editors sent me back a video and they didn't have anything on screen for 5 seconds, I would tell them to add something to screen, because you should never have blank space.
It's all than many other card games. Magic, for example, has a very gradual learning curve that helps introduce a player to higher and higher levels of play slowly over their time playing the game. Where most players start playing Magic is on the kitchen table, maybe with a parent, maybe with a friend, maybe with a sibling. You're going to start playing Magic because you think it's cool to play and you want to try it out. Magic cards almost all work for this kitchen table level of play, but it's definitely noteworthy that Magic prints cards for Timmies or players who want...
This card is terrible, by the way. What is this? 5 mana, 10/10 vanilla?
Some big splashy.
That's
cool
a great
effect
rate,
that
but
be very competitively viable.
It's
the
not very
natural
good.
progression from playing on kitchen table is playing Commander. This way you can fit more people into playing at the same time, as it's a multiplayer format and it's still relatively casual.
Yeah, white corners on the card, triggered.
Longer lasting games, giving you more.
If they turned in a video and they had white corners on the card, I'd be like, redo it. I'll show you how to take it off. Redo it.
Access to the game than you would if you were just playing for the first time. Commander does an alright job not only establishing the large collection.
It's a recorded PowerPoint slide.
In the game.
This is how I used to do my videos, but it wasn't a PowerPoint slide. I created everything in MS Paint and then just put together the... It was basically like a PowerPoint slide, but it was done in MS Paint, and it was... yeah.
Game of Magic the Gathering, but also can help introduce you to new people, as by being a multiplayer format, you will encounter lots more players if you're playing Commander.
If they just push Rush, would that be enough to gain new players?
It's also
yeah, probably. I don't like Rush duels though.
Into the game increases over time as you play the game more and more. Kitchen table, you just play with any cards.
Wait, this commenting Logs, what are your opinions on thumbnails, and are they that important? Thumbnails are probably the most important part of your video. Thumbnails and titles. It's almost more important than the actual content of the video itself.
You happen to pick up Commander. They have pre-constructed Commander decks that you can build, but almost any card is playable in the Commander format. This precedes the Limited, which is a format where you have to bring literally nothing, but you do have to pay an upfront cost to play in a limited event. A limited event allows players to play with many cards that would not
the Chocobo
constructed formats, as they are a lot weaker, but it also gives you an understanding of what the new cards coming out from Wizards of the Coast are at that moment. Limited is also noteworthy for the Magic the Gathering pre-releases, which happen before a set is released, allowing players to get access to the new cards a little bit before they would otherwise play it.
So Limited is basically like constructed, you create a deck based off the packs you pull.
Online or in person in standard tournament events. And finally, the big boy is the constructed formats like Standard, Modern, or Legacy. When these formats are played, these are for the more dedicated players to play, even though you can play them on a more casual level. Generally, if you're playing these formats, you can play in more constructed style events and tournaments that require a little bit more of a buy-in in terms of cards than...
How's Glitch Stars? You mean Glitch Shards?
the previous ones. Progressing up this ladder is the only way to learn Magic, of course. However, by going in this sort of fashion, you have an easy way for players to slowly engage more and more with the community of Magic the Gathering and learn more and more about the cards that were printed and the cards that are going to see print in the future. It's also important to note that all of these are different valid stopping points if you really like to. If you don't ever want to play more than Commander, it is totally fine to continue engaging with Magic, only playing Commander, only playing Kitchen Table, only playing Limited. All of these being valid means that all your players have little communities that they can take a part of, but also progress from one to another as they please. But let's say you're not satisfied with having all these different little communities. You don't want to cut your player base amongst many different groups and would rather keep everyone centralized in one main card game. It's worth looking at Pokemon's approach, as Pokemon only has the one main format that every player plays as the standard format. One of the ways they keep it very accessible to new players...
Wait, Pokemon has 2 formats. They have standard, and then they have the expanded format, which is basically like Yu-Gi-Oh's traditional format if we started at Edison and onwards, instead of also allowing classic Yu-Gi-Oh!
Is by printing very simple but powerful cards. Cards like Professor's Research and Super Rod are both very strong but have very basic...
Look at this. Super Rod. Shuffle up to 3 of a combination of Pokemon and basic energy cards from your discard pile into your deck. The only thing this thing does is put cards from your graveyard back into your deck and, like, no other effects. And this card is good. It is so good, like, everybody uses it. And it's so funny that, like, no one would use this in Yu-Gi-Oh! But in Pokemon, everyone uses it.
Having cards like this that seem really simple,
it's just a -1 in card advantage.
Or shuffling 3 Pokemon or basic energy into your deck from your discard pile, they seem super basic and easy for new players to use. However, they show a lot of hidden depth when played at high levels. This level of easy to play and hard to master is really important when making your game very elegant and making it easy for new players to get into your game thinking it's relatively simple. But then
who cares about new players though?
You play with the card a lot
just because it helps you grow and make more money.
Discarding a key piece card from your hand, or need to save your Super Rod for when your Pokemon is knocked out to get a new chance at playing that Pokemon again.
It's Pawn of Avarice.
Only
if Pawn of Avarice was bad,
like Lysandre's trump card end up being...
Look at this. This one's really funny. Each player shuffles all cards in his or her discard pile into their deck. It basically just resets your discard pile, and that's it. And this card is banned in the expanded format. It is so good that it's banned, and I just find that so funny. Because it's not -1 in card advantage. It doesn't impact your field.
Totally rudimentary card shuffling your discard pile into your deck, including your opponent making it.
Yeah, it's legit banned.
Effect, but this card actually got banned in Pokemon due to its power level. By making your simple cards also overlap with your powerful cards, it leaves you a lot of room to introduce complexity into your game without overloading your players, especially your new players, with huge mechanics and lots of keywords. This helps Pokemon focus in on different Pokemon that
Party
may
Hat
not
Pikachu.
be powerful enough. Pikachu in the games is completely horrible and see basically no play. However, you can make a Pikachu that does tons of things in the card game because they have a ton of flexibility in terms of what mechanics they can put onto a Pikachu. But what if you want that complexity, that layer of depth underneath, the cards that don't look simple and are complicated but can be used in really interesting ways? What if you like the fast games in Yu-Gi-Oh! Want something that goes at a
localized
high pace,
tornado?
like
Yeah, pretty much.
Gameplay, the immediately getting to use something against your opponent from the very first turn of the game. My recommendation to you would just be playing the Edison format. The Edison format features a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh's best elements without overloading the new player experience. It uses a lot of the basics from Yu-Gi-Oh! And doesn't overload the player with the amount that they need to learn. Blackwing Bow with the Spear is a card that special summons, however there aren't that many cards that special
card
summon
was
in
so
Edison,
annoying.
So it isn't overwhelming when you present a new player with a card that special summons itself. It still features lots of staples from the anime, keeping it relevant.
I basically played Edison format the most, because Edison format was around when I was in high school, and I had some Yu-Gi-Oh! Nerds in high school who had Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards. And we would play Yu-Gi-Oh! Together, like, behind the math buildings. And they were all scrubs who were really bad at the game. So I built gimmick decks so that I could be at an appropriate power level to them. Because I had my Macro Monarch deck, which would absolutely destroy any deck they played, because it had a bunch of, like, floodgates in it. And I was like, okay, we can't play it. I can't use this. I'm going to use Law of the Normal instead. Behind the math buildings, the math buildings were, like, off to the side, you know, away from, like, the lunch tables and stuff. And so they would play over there so people wouldn't bother them. And then I showed up, and then I started playing with them.
It's like Mirror Force. It still features Synchro Summoning with cards like YuGiOh Guardian dominating the format.
Shadowverse? I don't like games with a mana mechanic.
It even features hand traps, which I genuinely dislike, but cards like DD Crow having a small enough effect that it's easy to
Bore the Spear? Yeah, Bore the Spear with Gale or Kalute. I freaking hated Bore, because, like, I never played Blackwings. But Bore the Spear was, like, my bane, because It could special summon itself from the hand and had piercing damage and had 1700 attack. I was like, how can this thing like both special summon itself and have piercing damage and already have a high attack point value? That's not fair. This is so broken.
Use it against your opponent, make it a great card to play.
It's so much easier to make friends when you're younger in school. I mean, I make a shit ton of friends outside of school too. Making friends is a skill that can be learned. It is not something that just happens naturally. You have to work towards it.
Edison format still feels powerful. It still feels like you're making impactful plays from the very first turn of the game.
There's like a meta to making friends.
Special summon out and still has the hand traps.
You just have to find the meta and then practice.
It doesn't overwhelm new players by having a lot of cards with tons of words on them, a lot of decks.
You do not have that skill. Great thing about not having a skill is that you can learn that skill. There's books you can read. There's self-help books. Did you know the average successful CEO attends 20 self-help seminars per year? And that's because this truly successful people are constantly trying to improve their lives and learn new things. And you can learn how to do pretty much anything, including how to make friends.
And overwhelm new players. This way, Edison becomes a format that is great for new players to get into and can still be entertaining for veteran players alike.
Nobody used DD Crow. Actually, that's not true. People did use DD Crow back in the day.
Let's actually get around to fixing Yu-Gi-Oh! Itself in its current state. In my mind, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has two main issues, which are easily solved by Konami and would massively improve the new player experience if they were solved. And the first of these are the massive branching one-card combos, present on cards like Snake Eye Ash, which can easily get you into a massive end board from a single card. Having generic search monsters like Snake Eye Ash get any level 1 fire monster from your entire deck and put it into your hand give your decks massive flexibility, as any level 1 fire monster in the entire game could go into your opponent's hand when they play down Snake Eye Ash, giving your opponent a huge amount of cards that they have to think about you possibly getting when you play it. This isn't even to mention a card like Small World, which can get you from one card to any other card in the entire game if you have the right card to bridge between the two.
Nobody uses Small World.
In my opinion, the main problem with these kind of cards isn't the fact that they're really
powerful. It's a -1 searcher.
It's the massive wall of text present not only on them, but on the cards they search. A card like Bonfire looks like a really simple card that could be present in any game, only getting a level 4 or lower Pyro monster from your deck to your hand. But because of the way that Yu-Gi-Oh! Works, the Pyro monsters that you're going to search for often have a massive wall of text on themselves, and may not even be played out after you search them, meaning that you have to not only remember what the card your opponent searched for did, but then also be ready for them to play down that card, which probably searches another card from their deck, or special summon something from the graveyard that you now have to re-remember what it does. It's pretty clear in my mind that at some point Konami switched from having a game that was about inconsistency yet powerful.
What's really funny is a lot of people don't know how Small World works. I was just thinking about that. But he said there's two main issues here, and I don't see an issue. This is awesome. I love one-card combos.
Effects to having a game with a ton of consistency, but having a massive amount of complexity tacked onto it after the fact.
The first good pro gaming book was Playing to Win by David Serlin,
which search their deck
Street Fighter player can recommend.
Their own archetype is extreme.
I read all of the books on Amazon created by pro Yu-Gi-Oh players, and I can tell you what they all basically say. They say if you want to be good at the game, you need to learn the meta and learn all of the cards which can counter the meta, and practice a redunculous amount with people who are just as motivated as you, and have goals to work towards, because if you don't have goals, then the grind is going to suck ass. And there you have it. That's what all the books tell you to do. It's so easy. Just learn the meta and then learn all the counters to the meta, and then just practice a shit ton more than everyone else, and you're gold.
Extremely hard for a new player that doesn't specifically know what that archetype does or is revolving around to know not only what the opponent is doing, but what they should even begin to do in response.
Sounds like no fun allowed.
Extremely confused.
Yeah, if you want to win, you don't have fun. You that's not a requirement to winning. It just gets in the way.
Confused and very likely to go and find a deck which only does one thing no matter what the opponent does, which really diminishes the amount of gameplay they will actually see from Yu-Gi-Oh! And whilst I talk about the micro issue that's going on with Yu-Gi-Oh, I haven't gotten into the macro issue, which I believe is the second big problem that could easily be solved by Konami. And that's that there's no simple on-ramp to actually get you into the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Outside of somebody showing you, which, as I said before, is a way that works for literally every game on the planet, so it shouldn't really be the default for Yu-Gi-Oh! There is no easy way to get into a game like Master Duel.
Master
They
Drool.
have the tutorial in Master Duel, which does show you the basics, what normal summoning is, what a spell card does, how a trap card works, how to synchro summon, how to XYZ summon, etc.
He said XYZ. Ha ha ha. This is true. There is no simple way to learn the game because it's complicated as hell. That's one of the things I like about Yu-Gi-Oh, but also it is kind of hard to get people into the game. I remember when I got Stim into the game, I trained her how to play Yu-Gi-Oh by playing Danger Tearlaments. And that was kind of a complicated deck for a new player, but it definitely kept her around because she won a lot. Newbies are willing to learn a complicated deck if it's really good. I think that's somewhere that some people falter. They'll think about creating, they'll think about getting someone into the game with like a simple deck, and then they just get bored of it because the deck is too simple, or they lose a lot and it's frustrating. It's way better for a new player to something to win a lot than it is for them to be able to grasp it quicker.
Really just goes over the basics of how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! On the fundamental level. It also tries to introduce the archetypes to players, having these archetype spotlights that they can play through to get an idea of what every archetype in Yu-Gi-Oh! Does. But there's over 500 different
Tears
archetypes
crazy,
present
but
in
it's
Yu-Gi-Oh!
good.
And it would be completely unreasonable to
I can guarantee you she won every duel in her
and because
beginners
there's no real
league.
signification for what different archetypes are good or bad or see a ton of play or are very difficult. There's basically no way for a player to have any idea what they should play without asking somebody else. Meaning they're probably just going to pick a deck at random, whether or not the deck is good for new players or even something fun that they would want to play at all, or simply is completely unplayable in the meta at the time. They'll have absolutely no idea what they're doing, and there's basically no ropes to hold a player from falling off of Yu-Gi-Oh! Altogether.
Yeah, add more formats. I would love that.
Issue 1. I think Konami has already somewhat solved the issue about the massive amounts of searching and the huge text walls in Yu-Gi-Oh! By implementing different playable hand traps. A card like Nibiru or Droll and Lockbird definitely power down combo decks a large amount, massively limiting them on their ability to add cards to hand or to summon monsters to the field in a single turn, which makes it less likely opponents will be able to play against.
Did you know Konami designs archetypes around Nibiru? Like, pretty much all modern decks can get a negate for Nibiru down before their 5th summon. It's like, it used to be a lot harder than it is, but now they just kind of made it way easier than it used to be.
Decks that do a massive summoning combo, especially if Droll and Nibiru become more prominent in the metagame. It's also prominent to note that they have also powered up hand traps over the years as they print new hand traps, which definitely helps with powering down the combo decks of the metagame. Originally, we only had the card like Effect Welder, which only stopped one effect monster, still a powerful effect nowadays.
Yeah, Nibiru is worthless because of how easy it is to negate
a large number of cards at a fair price. These cards help focus on the main thing that the first issue is centering around, which is that the games need to see less cards in the first turn of the game. Having hand traps helps it so that way you can dilute your opponent's ability to play cards from their deck or cards from their hand in a single turn, making it much easier for you to focus on what you're trying to do rather than constantly thinking of what your opponent is. Having powerful hand traps not only makes it less likely for powerful decks that summon a lot or add a lot of cards from deck to hand to see tons of play in the metagame, meaning that new players will be less.
Yeah, and they print decks around Droll. They do. They also print decks around Droll. Like, a lot of decks will just add cards to the game field without adding them directly from the deck to your hand. Usually they go like straight to the grave and then they hit the field, or they'll go in onto the field immediately. Like, they do so many things besides adding cards directly from the deck to your hand, because they design modern decks to basically be Droll proof, which is really funny.
Likely to run into them, but it also
not all of them, of course.
An easy way to understand
thankfully
the way to beat these decks. If you want to beat a deck that special summons a lot, put some Nibirus in your deck. If you need
yeah,
to beat
it
decks
like
that add
sets
a
it
lot of cards to
directly.
hand, put in a Droll. I will say, however, this is really
like
tough.
just think about the face of the whatchamacallit, the Scarlet Witch girl. The level 7 one where like on summon she sets a card from your deck instead of adding it to your hand. That is such like trying to get around Ash and draw on Lockbird. Yeah, Diabell Star.
Thing for Konami to balance easily. Being able to prevent your opponent from doing a large monster combo when that's the whole focus.
I'm on the Peanuts already dead.
Being really bad, especially when it is
it's not dead.
That all the decks end up playing all of the hand traps, but also play all of the enablers, meaning that the game still hasn't been made actually any simpler. You've just added a lot of cards that are like maxi into your game, which completely make non-games happen. That being said, the addition of the mulch armies definitely shows me that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is walking in this direction of making more powerful hand traps that will hopefully help slow down the game in a meaningful way. Now for the second issue, which also has already sort of worked and been done by Konami before. It's by using alternate apps like Duel Links or like Rush Duel to help players get into the game from the very start. These games work a lot better as on-ramps to new players.
Wait, what was that? What was that? What was that? What was that?
Alternate apps like Duel Links or like Rush Duel to help players get into the game from the
the bottom left-hand corner there was like a guide. I think this is a PowerPoint. You were right.
These games work a lot better as on-ramps to new players than Master Duel itself, even though Master Duel is the main way to play Yu-Gi-Oh! These games both do
more
something
like
really smart,
Master Drool.
Different metagames from Yu-Gi-Oh! Altogether. And they also feature a lot of similar cards present from Yu-Gi-Oh!'s anime and the Yu-Gi-Oh! Game itself. By doing this, these games can both straddle the line between being a main Yu-Gi-Oh! Element, but also being something different that is friendly to new players. That way you don't have to upset the entire ecosystem of Yu-Gi-Oh! Itself, but can still introduce new players to the game in a meaningful way. By still featuring a similar way of playing the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! That players are familiar with from when they played back in the school ground days, it makes it easier for new players to get into the game as it looks familiar to what they are used to. However, these games still implement higher combo enablers and new mechanics to make it a little more complex, so that way players will have something more to engage with in the main game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Seeing something like Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist really gives me hope that there are people who still want to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Remember watching the anime of the kid and would love to get into.
Oof. So this game right here is what cost me my Konami contact. They gave me a free copy of this to give out during a stream, and I never did. I still have the code, and after which they stopped giving me free stuff.
The game, if only there was some sort of bridge that would take them from a game like.
And you want to know why I never gave out the code? Because I didn't know how. I was like, I streamed on YouTube back then. It's like, how am I going to give out the code? You can't DM people and you can't just put it in chat. And I was like, well, I'm out of options. I didn't think to look it up or Google or, you know, this was also back before ChatGPT even existed. I didn't know how to do it, so I just gave up.
Legacy of the Duelist to the actual game of Master Duel. This is the ideal product in my mind to get a new player into the game.
What do you mean you didn't know how? I didn't know how. You can't DM people on YouTube. Nightbot raffle was a thing. No, but how would I give them the code? No, it was literally one code. You can't pin it or something. Or I guess I could have, and just the first person who typed it in. You see, that's a good idea. But why didn't you guys tell me this back in 2019 when they gave me the code?
That is much more simplified and easy for players who are very, very fond of the old Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime to get into, but still have that bridge over to the real game or to Master Duel in some way. The one thing all of these titles are really missing
so I basically lost my Konami contact for the dumbest reason ever.
The real game altogether, some way where it goes from playing the regular game of Duel Links to an easy crossover into playing the actual game of Yu-Gi-Oh! In paper or playing the game on Master Duel.
Yeah, I remember when you could DM on YouTube too. That was great.
Sort of currency in Duel Links.
I'd always get DMs from like religious nuts telling me that I was going to hell. I loved it.
Over to you getting packs in the real world. These are some things that other card games do, and would definitely make it way easier for you to get into the actual game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Than just if you were to play Legacy of the Duelist online and then be like, okay, that's enough, I'm done with Legacy of the Duelist, and then not picking up Yu-Gi-Oh! Ever again. I think it's worth noting that doing these things won't solve everything for Yu-Gi-Oh! The new player experience is incredibly nuanced and takes a lot of work to put in to get new players into the game, and doing these things will not simply solve every new player problem. There's many other things that you could do to help the game that will help solve the new player issues other than the ones I've listed here. That being said, it's clear, at least in my mind, that Konami is trying to take steps in the right direction to make the new player experience better. For example, taking cards like Maxi, which are present in Master Duel, and replacing them with the Molcharmies, which are pretty clearly styled after a card like Maxi but more balanced, really show that Konami has in mind what they want to do with hand traps.
Did you reply with "See you in hell"? No,
altogether.
I didn't reply.
It may seem like Konami oftentimes has it out for the game as it's been around so long and still has this new player experience. And even when they do blunder by ruining the Time Wizard rules for some reason and then rolling it back a few days later after everyone freaks out on Twitter, it's important to remember that it's clear
Why
that
don't you
they
raffle
do
the
want
code
to
here
improve
now?
the
Because
game
then I'd
to
have to
make
go
it better
find
for
it.
not only new players but old players alike. So I do think that when you voice your opinion, it is really important to give it to Konami, tell them what we want, and tell them what they can help to do to make new people come into the game. So go out and make your voice heard. Maybe down in the comments down below this video, you can let me know how you'd help Yu-Gi-Oh's new player experience and make it better for new people coming into the game. Remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this from me, and let me know how you would help out Yu-Gi-Oh's new player experience.
I would help new players get into the game by making all cards have 5 effects instead of 3.